Renee Vickers sat in her car outside the county jail, rain hammering the roof like 1,000 tiny fists. The digital clock on her dashboard read 2:17 a.m. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I have information about Marcus. Meet me at Denny's on Riverside now." Her thumb hovered over the screen. 3 months ago, she would have deleted any message about Marcus without reading past his name. But tonight, with her bank account drained and her reputation in tatters, she started the engine. The Denny's parking lot was nearly empty when she pulled in. Only a black SUV with tinted windows occupied the far corner. As she killed her headlights, a broad-shouldered man stepped out of the vehicle. Even from 20 yards away, his presence commanded attention. Something in the deliberate way he moved, scanning his surroundings with the hypervigilance of someone who made enemies for a living. When Renee approached, she noticed the leather portfolio tucked under his arm and the unmistakable bulge of a holstered weapon beneath his jacket. "Ms. Vickers?" His voice was deep, smooth like aged bourbon. "I'm Julian Mercer." "You're the bail bondsman," she said, more statement than question. "Yes, though tonight, I'm more of a messenger." He gestured toward the restaurant entrance. "Shall we?" Inside, over coffee neither of them touched, Julian slid a manila folder across the table. "Your boyfriend made bail yesterday." "Ex-boyfriend," Renee corrected sharply. "And I know. His new girlfriend made sure to call and brag about fronting the money." "Sophia Wright." Julian nodded. "She also instructed him to block your number." The mention of the woman's name sent a spike of adrenaline through Renee's system. "So how did you find me?" Julian's mouth curved into something between a smile and a grimace. "Finding people is what I do, Ms. Vickers. And Marcus Ford is about to skip town and leave both of you holding the bag." He opened the folder, revealing photographs of Marcus with yet another woman, neither Renee nor Sophia, boarding a private plane. The timestamp showed yesterday afternoon, just hours after his release. "He's taking off with his business partner's wife and $2 million from your joint accounts." Renee's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, shattering against the linoleum floor. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Those accounts were frozen when he was arrested." Julian's expression remained impassive. "The accounts in his name were frozen. The ones he opened in yours weren't." Her mouth went dry. "What?" "Identity theft is just one of the charges that didn't make it into his initial booking." He pulled out another document, a bank statement with her name on it and withdrawals she'd never made. "You didn't know you had an offshore account with $3 million in it, did you?" The waitress appeared with a towel for the spilled coffee, but Renee barely noticed. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked when they were alone again. "What's your angle?" Julian leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Because I don't just find people who skip bail, Ms. Vickers. Sometimes I find justice for those who've been wronged by them. And sometimes," he slid a business card across the table, "sometimes justice needs a little help." 6 months earlier, Renee had been living a different life. As the executive director of donor relations at Eastlake Memorial Hospital, she managed millions in charitable contributions with meticulous care. Her 3-bedroom condo overlooked the river, and her 5-year plan included a promotion to VP of Development. At 34, she had constructed a life of predictable success. Then she met Marcus Ford at a hospital fundraiser. Marcus owned a medical supply company that had recently secured a contract with Eastlake. With his tailored suits, razor-sharp jawline, and the kind of confidence that entered a room before he did, he was impossible to ignore. When he singled her out across a crowded ballroom, Renee felt a thrill she hadn't experienced in years. Their courtship was a whirlwind, weekend getaways to coastal towns, surprise gifts delivered to her office, passionate nights in luxury hotel suites. By month 3, he had practically moved into her condo, though he maintained his downtown apartment for business. "You're different from other women I've dated," he told her one night as they shared a bottle of wine on her balcony. "You understand ambition. You don't try to change me." Looking back now, she should have recognized the warning in those words. In the parking lot outside Denny's, Julian's business card burned in Renee's pocket as she tried to process everything he'd told her. How did Marcus even get my personal information? She asked, pacing beside her car. I never gave him access to my accounts. Julian leaned against his SUV, arms crossed. When's the last time you left him alone with your laptop? Your mail, your phone? The realization hit her like a physical blow. All those mornings she'd left for early meetings while he was still in her bed. The times she'd asked him to grab her mail while she was traveling for work. The dozens of moments she'd handed him her unlocked phone to show him a photo or an email. He's been planning this for months, she whispered. Julian nodded grimly. People like Marcus don't improvise. They calculate. And right now, his calculation includes you taking the fall for financial crimes you didn't commit. But why involve me at all? He has his new girlfriend, Sophia Wright, Julian supplied. Daughter of State Senator Wright, 27 years old, interior designer with a trust fund and a clean record. Perfect for his next chapter. So I was just… What? A stepping stone? You were a shield, Julian corrected. Your pristine financial history, your position at the hospital. You provided legitimacy while he moved money. And now that he's done, you're the perfect scapegoat. Renee felt her knees weaken. She leaned against her car for support. The FBI has been watching his business for months, Julian continued. They know about the kickbacks, the inflated invoices, the shell companies. What they don't know yet is how deep your involvement goes. I'm not involved at all. Can you prove that? His tone wasn't accusatory, just matter of fact. Because right now, your signature is on documents transferring millions through accounts in the Caymans, Luxembourg, and Panama. Renee closed her eyes, trying to calm her racing heart. Why are you telling me all this? What do you want? Like I said, I find people. But my specialty is finding people who don't want to be found. And Marcus doesn't want to be found, she finished. Julian's expression darkened. Marcus has skipped on a $500,000 bond that I personally secured. That makes this professional for me. But there's more. He hesitated. He's done this before. Different cities, different women, and I've been tracking him for a long time. You knew who he was when he was arrested? I made sure I was the one who got his case. Julian straightened up. So here's what happens next. You can wait for the FBI to show up at your door with questions you can't answer. Or you can help me find Marcus before he disappears for good. Renee stared at him. You want me to help you? You know things about him that aren't in any file. His habits. His tells. The lies he might have let slip when he thought you weren't paying attention. And what do I get out of this? A chance to clear your name. Evidence that proves your innocence. He paused. And maybe a shot at getting your money back. Renee thought about her frozen accounts. The credit cards that had been declined that morning. The mortgage payment that would bounce in 3 days. What about his new girlfriend? Sophia? Does she know what he's doing? That's complicated, Julian said. She bailed him out, but she wasn't on that private plane. My guess is she's another pawn. Renee felt a strange twist of empathy for the woman who had smugly called to tell her that Marcus had moved on. Soon Sophia would be standing where Renee was now, betrayed, confused, and possibly implicated. I need time to think, she said finally. Julian nodded, pushing off from his SUV. You have until noon tomorrow. After that, I start working alone, and you deal with the FBI by yourself. He opened his car door, then paused. One more thing. Don't try to contact Marcus or Sophia. Don't warn them. Don't do anything that might spook him further. I told you. She had me blocked on his phone. And I told you, Julian replied, his eyes glinting in the parking lot's harsh lights. Finding people is what I do. Finding numbers they don't want found is just part of the package. As he drove away, Renee stood alone in the rain, Julian's card clutched in her hand, wondering how her life had imploded so completely in a single night. Renee spent the night in a cheap motel paid for with the emergency cash she kept in her glove compartment. Sleep eluded her as she pored over bank statements she'd pulled from her online accounts, tracing the subtle patterns of fraud that had been happening right under her nose. By morning, she had made her decision. Julian arrived precisely at noon, finding her waiting in the motel's dingy lobby. I'll help you, she said without preamble. But I have conditions. If he was surprised by her directness, he didn't show it. Name them. I want written proof of my innocence. Something I can take to the FBI myself if necessary. Julian nodded. I've already started compiling a file. What else? I want to be there when you find him. Her voice hardened. I need to see his face when it all falls apart. This gave him pause. That could be dangerous. So is letting him get away with this. After a long moment, Julian agreed. Anything else? Renee hesitated. Sophia Wright. When this is over, I want to talk to her. Alone. Julian's eyebrow arched slightly, but he nodded. Done. Now let's get started. I need to know everything about Marcus. Routines, passwords, friends, habits. Especially the things he thought you didn't notice. For the next 3 hours, Renee dissected her relationship with clinical precision. She described Marcus's burner phones, the calls he took in the bathroom with the shower running, the business trips that never aligned with his company calendar. He has a tell when he's lying, she explained. He rubs his watch face. It's subtle, but once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Julian took detailed notes. What about properties? Any places he mentioned wanting to visit or invest in? Renee started to shake her head, then stopped. Wait, there was something... About 3 months ago, he was looking at real estate listings in Belize. He said it was for a client, but he was rubbing his watch, Julian finished. Exactly. She frowned, trying to recall more details. It was a coastal property. Something about a marina and private access. Julian immediately pulled out his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. Belize has been tightening its banking regulations, but it's still a popular destination for people looking to disappear. While he searched, Renee's phone buzzed. A text from another unknown number. It's Sophia Wright. We need to talk. About Marcus. Renee stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Julian, he looked up from his laptop, instantly alert. What is it? She turned the phone toward him. Sophia just texted me. Julian's expression darkened. That's not possible. I've been monitoring her. She's been at her apartment all morning and her phone hasn't made any calls outside her usual contacts. Then who? It's Marcus, Julian said grimly. He's trying to find out if you figured anything out yet. How would he know that? Because someone tipped him off. Julian was already packing up his computer. We need to move, now. Wait, shouldn't we answer? Lead him on somehow? Julian shook his head. Radio silence is our best move. Let him wonder. It'll make him nervous, and nervous people make mistakes. As they hurried to Julian's SUV, Renee's mind raced. If Marcus knows you're involved, doesn't that mean your inside source at the bail bonds office is compromised? Julian gave her an appraising look as he opened her door. You catch on quick. I manage millions in donations. I know when numbers don't add up. She buckled her seatbelt. So who's the leak? Only 3 people knew I was tracking Marcus. My assistant, my partner, and... Julian stopped cold, his hand freezing on the ignition. And? Renee prompted. And Detective Lydia Keller. His jaw tightened. The officer who arrested Marcus in the first place? Renee felt the blood drain from her face. The police are involved? Not all of them. Just Lydia. Julian started the engine. She and I have history. The complicated kind. Romantic? Professional. She was on an FBI task force before joining local PD. We worked cases together. He pulled out of the parking lot with controlled urgency. If she's working with Marcus, this just got a lot more dangerous. Where are we going? Renee asked, noticing they weren't heading toward the main highway. Somewhere safe to regroup. I have a place off the grid. He glanced in the rearview mirror. And we're being followed. Renee twisted in her seat. 2 cars back, a black sedan kept pace with them, its windows tinted beyond legal limits. Is it Marcus? Too careful for his style. Julian took a sharp turn onto a side street. This feels like Lydia's work. For the next 20 minutes, Julian navigated a complex series of turns through industrial areas and residential neighborhoods, eventually losing their tail in a shopping mall parking garage by switching vehicles to an inconspicuous gray pickup truck he had stashed in a reserved spot. You really do this for a living, Renee murmured as they drove away in the truck. Finding people who don't want to be found means sometimes you don't want to be found either. He handed her a burner phone. Use this from now on. Your regular phone is probably compromised. As they drove toward the outskirts of town, Renee's burner phone rang. The screen showed only unknown caller. Julian nodded for her to answer and put it on speaker. Hello? She said cautiously. Ms. Vickers. The voice was female, authoritative. This is Detective Lydia Keller. Julian's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. I understand you're with Julian Mercer, the detective continued. I should warn you, he's not what he seems. And what does he seem? Renee asked, glancing at Julian's hardened expression. Like someone who wants to help you. But Julian has his own agenda. Always has. That's rich coming from you, Lydia. Julian cut in. Tell me, how much is Marcus paying you to obstruct justice? A cold laugh came through the speaker. Is that what you think? That I'm corrupt? Julian, I'm trying to build a RICO case against Marcus Ford and his entire network. You're interfering with an active investigation. Julian exchanged a look with Renee. Prove it. Check your email, Lydia said. I just sent you case files that I am definitely not authorized to share. If I were corrupt, why would I risk my badge to bring you in on this? Julian pulled the truck over and took out his secure laptop. When he accessed his encrypted email, there they were. Dozens of files documenting a sprawling investigation into Marcus Ford's organization. These could be fabricated, Julian said, but his tone had lost some of its certainty. The CI number in the corner of page 7, Lydia replied. That's from our first case together. The Matthews trafficking ring. You never filed that number in any official report. Julian's expression shifted slightly. If you're running a legitimate operation, why follow us? Because you're about to blow 2 years of undercover work, Lydia snapped. Marcus doesn't know we're on to him. He thinks he's untouchable because he's got half the city's officials in his pocket, including Judge Harmon, who set his bail ridiculously low. Julian mused. Exactly. We had to let him make bail to see who he'd contact, where he'd go. And Sophia Wright? Renee interjected. Is she part of this too? A pause. Ms. Wright is complicated. She's not a target, but she's not entirely innocent either. What does that mean? Renee demanded. It means, Julian answered before Lydia could, that Sophia might be another victim. But she's also been willing to look the other way when the money rolled in. We need to talk, Lydia said. In person, but not with civilian company. Renee stays with me, Julian stated firmly. Her life is on the line here, another pause. Fine. The old boathouse at Crescent Lake. 1 hour. Come alone, just the two of you. The call ended, leaving them in silence. Do we trust her? Renee finally asked. Julian stared at the case files on his screen. I don't know. The information checks out, but Lydia always was thorough. What's our alternative? We could still try to find Marcus ourselves. Renee considered this. If Detective Keller is telling the truth, we'd be interfering with a federal investigation. And if she's lying, we could be walking into a trap. The burner phone buzzed with a text message. I understand your hesitation. But ask Julian about Copenhagen. He'll know I'm on the level. Julian's face changed when he read it, a subtle softening around the eyes. Copenhagen? Renee asked. A case that went bad, he said quietly. Lydia took a bullet pushing me out of the way. No one else knows about it because it never made the official report. He put the truck in gear. We'll meet her. As they drove toward Crescent Lake, Renee felt the distinct sensation of crossing a threshold, of moving past the point of no return. Whatever happened at the boathouse would determine not just Marcus's fate, but her own. The boathouse at Crescent Lake stood isolated at the end of a weathered dock, its gray timbers blending with the overcast sky. Julian parked the truck a quarter-mile away, insisting they approach on foot through the wooded shoreline. Just in case, he explained, checking his weapon before tucking it into his holster. They moved silently through the trees, Julian occasionally stopping to survey their surroundings. When they reached the edge of the clearing, The boathouse was visible across 50 yards of open ground. "I don't see any vehicles," Renee whispered. "Lydia wouldn't park where we could spot her car easily." Julian studied the building. "Wait here while I check the perimeter." "No," Renee said firmly. "We do this together or not at all." After a moment's hesitation, Julian nodded. "Stay behind me then." They crossed the open ground quickly and pressed themselves against the boathouse wall. Julian peered through a grimy window, then motioned for Renee to follow him to the door. Inside, the boathouse was larger than it appeared from the outside. Dust motes danced in the pale light filtering through salt-encrusted windows. A few rotting rowboats hung from ceiling hooks, and the wooden floor creaked. "Underfoot, you're late," came Lydia's voice from the shadows at the far end. She emerged into a shaft of light. A woman in her early 40s with short, silver-streaked hair and the coiled readiness of someone who had seen combat. Her badge gleamed on her belt next to her holstered sidearm. "Had to make sure we weren't followed," Julian replied, keeping his body angled to protect Renee. Lydia's gaze shifted to Renee. "Ms. Vickers, I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this. Are you?" Renee stepped forward, surprising both Julian and Lydia. "Because from where I'm standing, I'm just collateral damage in whatever game you and Marcus are playing." Lydia's expression hardened. "This isn't a game. Marcus Ford has laundered over $50 million through medical supply contracts with 6 different hospitals in 3 states. He's bribed officials, threatened witnesses, and yes, used women like you as unwitting accomplices. So why arrest him now? Why not wait until you had enough to put him away for good?" "Because we had no choice," Lydia said grimly. "One of our undercover agents was compromised. We had to move before Marcus had him killed." Julian's posture changed slightly. "Ramos?" Lydia nodded. "He's in protective custody now, but the arrest forced us to show our hand before we were ready. And letting Marcus make bail?" Julian pressed. "That was part of the plan? We needed to see who he'd contact, where the money would move." Lydia produced a tablet and pulled up a satellite map. "We've been tracking his accounts, his phones, his vehicles. Everything pointed to this property in Belize." She zoomed in on a coastal estate with a private dock. "That's it," Renee said, recognizing the property from Marcus's browser history. "That's the place he was looking at. It's owned by a shell corporation that traces back to a law firm in Panama that specializes in disappearing acts for wealthy criminals," Lydia explained. "Marcus wired $3 million to them last week." "Using my identity," Renee added bitterly. Lydia's expression softened slightly. "We have enough evidence to clear your name, Ms. Vickers, but we need to let this play out a little longer." "What about Sophia Wright?" Renee asked. "Where does she fit in all this?" Lydia and Julian exchanged a look. "Tell her," Julian said. Lydia sighed. "Sophia Wright isn't Marcus's new girlfriend. She's an FBI agent. Deep cover." The revelation hit Renee like a physical blow. "What?" "She's been embedded in Marcus's operation for the past year," Lydia continued. "Her father isn't really a state senator. That's just her cover story. So when she called to brag about bailing him out, she was protecting her cover," Julian finished, "and trying to keep you at a safe distance." Renee felt dizzy with the implications. "But the text I received this morning, claiming to be from Sophia, that was Marcus testing you," Lydia confirmed. "He suspects someone close to him is working with law enforcement. He's been sending fake messages to everyone in his circle, watching for reactions." "So what happens now?" Renee asked. "You just let him flee to Belize with millions in stolen money?" "No," Lydia said firmly. "We intercept him before he leaves U.S. airspace, but we need to know exactly when and how he's planning to move." Julian frowned. "Your surveillance hasn't picked that up?" "He's gone dark since yesterday. Ditched all his known phones. His regular pilot filed a flight plan to the Caymans, but we're certain that's a diversion." "He has a second pilot," Renee said suddenly. Both Lydia and Julian turned to her. "A woman named Eliza or Elise. Something with an E. He called her once when I was with him. Said she was his insurance policy if things ever went sideways." Lydia immediately pulled out her phone. Elena, maybe? Elena Vasquez? That's it, Renee confirmed. He said she flew cargo routes that didn't ask questions. Lydia stepped away to make a call, speaking urgently into her phone. Julian moved closer to Renee. You're doing good, he said quietly. This will all be over soon, will it? She asked. Even if you catch Marcus, the money he stole from me, from the hospital, it's probably gone for good, isn't it? Before Julian could answer, the boathouse door burst open. A man in a tactical vest stood silhouetted against the gray sky, pointing a gun at them. Federal agents! Hands where I can see them! More agents poured through the door, weapons raised. Lydia spun around, shock on her face. What the hell is this? An agent in a suit stepped forward. Detective Keller, you're interfering with a federal operation. Stand down. I am the federal operation, you idiot. Lydia snapped, reaching for her badge. Don't move! Shouted one of the tactical agents. Julian had already raised his hands, angling his body to shield Renee. Easy, he said calmly. Let's all take a breath here. The suited agent's radio crackled. He listened, then nodded to the tactical team. Secure them all. Separate vehicles. As agents moved toward them, Julian locked eyes with Renee. Trust no one, he whispered. Not even me. Before she could respond, they were pulled apart, cuffed, and led out of the boathouse to waiting SUVs. Through the window of her vehicle, Renee watched Julian and Lydia being placed in different cars. As her SUV pulled away, she caught a final glimpse of Julian. He wasn't looking at her. His gaze was fixed on something in the distance, his expression unreadable. The drive lasted approximately 20 minutes before they arrived at a nondescript office building on the outskirts of the city. Renee was escorted to a sterile interview room and left alone, still handcuffed to her chair. After what felt like hours, the door opened. A man in an expensive suit entered, followed by Detective Keller, uncuffed and apparently free to move about. Ms. Vickers, the man said, taking a seat across from her. I'm Special Agent Thornton. I apologize for the theatrics back at the boathouse. Renee stared at Lydia. Was any of it true? Or was it all an act? Lydia's expression remained professional but regretful. The case against Marcus is real. Everything I told you about him was true. She paused. But Julian Mercer isn't who he claimed to be. Agent Thornton opened a file and slid a photograph across the table. It showed Julian shaking hands with a man Renee recognized from news reports, Anton Vasquez, a notorious cartel financier. Julian Mercer has been working both sides for years, Thornton explained. He helps us catch certain criminals while protecting others who pay for his services. I don't believe you, Renee said, though uncertainty crept into her voice. Marcus Ford is one of Julian's clients, Lydia continued. The bail bond was a sham, a way for Julian to insert himself into the investigation. He's been feeding Marcus information about our operation from the beginning. Then why involve me at all? Because you're the perfect distraction, came a voice from the doorway. Renee turned to see Sophia Wright, the woman she knew only from social media photos with Marcus. In person, she had the sharp, assessing gaze of someone who missed nothing. While Julian kept us focused on you and your connection to Marcus, the real money was being moved through channels we weren't watching, Sophia explained, taking a seat beside Agent Thornton. So everything, the offshore accounts in my name, the identity theft, all real, Sophia assured her. But only part of the picture. The $3 million linked to your accounts is just a fraction of what Marcus has stolen. Where is Julian now? Renee asked. The 3 law enforcement officers exchanged glances. We had to let him go, Thornton admitted. We don't have enough to hold him yet. But you will, Lydia added. Because you're going to help us, Renee laughed bitterly. Haven't I helped enough? My life is in shambles, my reputation destroyed, and my bank accounts emptied. What more could you possibly want from me? Sophia leaned forward. We want you to meet with Marcus. The request struck Renee like a physical blow. Are you insane? He's trying to frame me for his crimes. Which is why he'll agree to see you, Sophia explained. He'll think you're desperate to clear your name, that you want to make a deal. And why would I do this? Because we can guarantee all charges against you will be dropped, Thornton said. And we'll help you recover at least some of your stolen funds. Plus, Lydia added, you'll have the satisfaction of looking Marcus in the eye when it all falls apart. Renee studied each of their faces, searching for deception. And Julian? What about him? What about him? Thornton asked. He told me to trust no one. Not even him. She straightened in her chair. So what if he was warning me about you? A tense silence filled the room. Finally, Sophia spoke. There's one way to find out who's telling the truth. She placed a phone on the table. Call Marcus. Tell him you want to meet. If Julian is working with him, Marcus will know we've approached you and he'll refuse. If Julian is working against him, Marcus will think he still has the upper hand. Renee stared at the phone. Every instinct told her she was missing something. That the truth lay somewhere in the spaces between what Julian had told her and what these agents were claiming. But if there was even a chance of clearing her name, of recovering some part of her stolen life. She reached for the phone. The private airfield glowed amber in the sunset, empty except for a sleek Gulfstream jet idling on the tarmac. Renee sat in the passenger seat of Sophia's government-issue sedan, her heart hammering against her ribs. He's already here, Sophia said, scanning the area through binoculars. Right on schedule. And you're sure the wire won't set off any scanners? Renee asked, touching the invisible transmitter adhered to her skin just below her collarbone. It's military grade, undetectable. Sophia lowered the binoculars. Remember, all you need to do is get him talking about the accounts. We need him to admit knowledge of the identity theft, the fraudulent transfers, and his plans to leave the country. And Julian? Do you have eyes on him too? Sophia's expression tightened. No sign of him yet. But if he's working with Marcus, he'll show. And if he isn't, then we have units ready to protect him from Marcus's people. Sophia checked her watch. It's time. Remember your cover story. You figured out what Marcus did. You want a cut of the money in exchange for your silence. Renee nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the car. The walk across the tarmac felt endless. With each step, she mentally rehearsed her lines, the expressions to wear, the tells to watch for. When she reached the base of the jet's stairs, a figure appeared in the doorway. Marcus Ford looked exactly as she remembered, immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit, his dark hair perfectly styled, his smile calculated to disarm. Only now, she saw the predatory glint in his eyes that she had mistaken for passion. Renee, he greeted her, as if they were meeting for dinner rather than a criminal confrontation. I was surprised to get your call, were you? She kept her voice level. Or were you waiting for it? His smile widened. Smart as always. Come aboard. We shouldn't talk out in the open. Renee ascended the steps, hyper-aware of the wire beneath her blouse and the agents watching from concealed positions around the airfield. The jet's interior gleamed with luxury. Cream leather seats, polished wood tables, crystal decanters filled with amber liquor. A laptop sat open on one of the tables, displaying what appeared to be banking information. Marcus gestured to a seat across from his. Drink? No, thank you. I prefer to keep a clear head when negotiating. He chuckled, pouring himself 2 fingers of scotch. Direct as ever. It's one of the things I admired about you. He settled into his seat. So, let's hear it. What exactly do you think you know? I know about the accounts you opened in my name. The transfers to Panama and the Caymans. The property in Belize. She held his gaze steadily. I know you're running, and I know why. Marcus's expression didn't change, but his finger tapped once against his glass, a tell she'd never noticed before. And what is it you want? He asked. Money? A tearful apology? I want 20% of what you took, and guarantee that my name is cleared of any involvement. He studied her for a long moment, then laughed softly. You really think you're in a position to make demands? The FBI has been building a case against you for months. Your signature is on every document. Your computer was used to access the accounts. Your phone made the calls. We both know those signatures were forged. The computer access was when you stayed at my place, and you cloned my phone months ago. She leaned forward. But here's what you don't know. I kept records of my own. Times when you claimed to be with me, but weren't. Dates when transfers were made while I was in meetings with 20 witnesses. This was a bluff, one they had carefully constructed with Sophia and Thornton. But Marcus's slight hesitation told her it had landed. Even if that were true, he said, swirling his scotch, it would be your word against mine. And I have very expensive lawyers. It's not just my word. It's Julian Mercer's, too. Marcus froze, the glass halfway to his lips. What did you say? Julian Mercer. The bail bondsman who's been tracking you for months. He has proof of everything you've done, not just to me, but to the others before me. A flash of genuine anger crossed Marcus's face before he controlled it. Julian Mercer is a mercenary who works for whoever pays him the most, and I assure you, my price is higher than yours. Is it? Because he seemed very motivated to bring you down. Almost personal. Marcus set his glass down with deliberate care. What exactly did Julian tell you about me? Everything. About the women in Seattle, in Chicago. About the hospital administrators and the charity directors. Your pattern. Renee was improvising now, watching Marcus's reactions carefully. He said you always target women with access to financial systems, but no family ties to notice when things go missing. And you believed him? Marcus's smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. Julian Mercer is a con man with a badge. He uses women too, gets them to trust him, to help him track his targets. Then he takes his cut and disappears. Doubt crept into Renee's mind, but she pushed it away. So why does he want you so badly? Marcus leaned back, studying her face. Because 3 years ago, I took something that belonged to him, something he never reported missing. Before Renee could ask what he meant, a sound from the cockpit caught Marcus's attention. He glanced toward the front of the plane, then back at her with new suspicion in his eyes. You're wearing a wire, he said flatly. Renee's breath caught. Don't be paranoid. Marcus's hand moved toward his jacket, and Renee tensed, expecting a weapon. Instead, he withdrew a small electronic device the size of a cell phone. Signal jammer, he explained, activating it with a button press. Military grade. Now whatever little performance you were putting on for your FBI friends is just between us. Panic fluttered in Renee's chest. The backup plan if her wire failed was to stall until Sophia gave the extraction signal, a text message that would make her phone vibrate 3 times. There's nowhere to run. Marcus, she said, playing for time. The FBI has the airfield surrounded. Do they? He glanced out the window with theatrical concern. Funny, because the only vehicles I see belong to my security team. He leaned forward. You've been played, Renee. By Julian, by the FBI, by everyone. What are you talking about? Julian Mercer isn't a bail bondsman. He's ex-CIA, dishonorably discharged for selling intelligence to the highest bidder. The FBI has been trying to catch him for years. You're lying. Am I? Marcus turned his laptop toward her. On the screen was a classified personnel file, Julian's, with a prominent disavowed stamp across it. Julian approached me 6 months ago, offering to sell information about federal investigations into my business. But his price was too high, so I refused. That's when he found you. Renee stared at the file, trying to process what she was seeing. Could everyone have been lying to her? Was there anyone she could trust? Why should I believe anything you say? She asked. You shouldn't, came a voice from the cockpit doorway. Julian Mercer stood there. Gun trained on Marcus, his expression cold and focused. Julian, Marcus greeted him with remarkable composure. Right on schedule. Signal jammer was a nice touch, Julian said, nodding toward the device. But I've been jamming your communications since you arrived. No one's coming to help you, Marcus. Renee stood, backing away from both men. What is happening? Who are you, really? Julian kept his eyes and gun fixed on Marcus. I told you the truth, Renee. Most of it, anyway. Most isn't good enough anymore, she said sharply. I am a bail bondsman, Julian continued. But before that, I was CIA. And Marcus is right. I was disavowed. But not for selling intelligence. Then for what? She demanded. For killing an asset who turned out to be innocent. Julian's voice was flat. A mistake I've been trying to make right ever since. Marcus laughed. Such nobility. Tell her the rest, Julian. Tell her who the asset was. My sister, Julian said quietly. Elena Vasquez. My half-sister who changed her name to distance herself from me. The pilot Marcus mentioned to you. Renee felt the pieces clicking into place. Your sister is working with Marcus? Was working with him, Julian corrected. She's dead. Killed in a private plane accident 3 months ago after Marcus decided she knew too much. That's a touching story, Marcus said, not sounding touched at all. But completely fictional. Elena Vasquez is very much alive and currently waiting to fly me out of the country. He smiled coldly. In fact, she's the one who told me about your little operation with the FBI. For the first time, Julian's composure cracked. What? Oh, did I hit a nerve? Your precious sister has been on my payroll for years. She's the one who helped me set up the offshore accounts, the shell companies, everything. Marcus's smile widened. She's also the one who suggested Renee as a perfect fall person. Said her financial background and social isolation made her ideal. Renee felt physically ill. Is that true? She asked Julian. The doubt in his eyes was answer enough. In that moment of distraction, Marcus made his move. His hand darted beneath the table and emerged with a pistol aimed at Julian. Now we can either shoot each other or we can make a deal, Marcus said calmly. I have $50 million in connections in countries without extradition. You have a sister who wants to reconcile and a skill set I could use. And what about me? Renee asked, anger burning through her shock. What do I get in this deal? Marcus barely glanced at her. Your life, which is more than the FBI would give you once they realize how deeply implicated you are. Don't listen to him, Renee, Julian said, his gun still steady despite the weapon pointed at him. The FBI has enough to clear you? The same FBI that's been lying to you? Marcus countered. The same FBI that used you as bait without telling you the full truth about Julian or me. Renee looked between the two men, each with their own agenda, each with reasons to lie and manipulate her. In that moment, she made a decision. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. What are you doing? Julian asked, tension in his voice. Solving this my way. She dialed a number, put the phone on speaker, and set it on the table between them. After 2 rings, a familiar voice answered. Agent Thornton, it's Renee Vickers. I'm on Marcus Ford's plane with both him and Julian Mercer. Both are armed, a moment of silence. Are you safe, Ms. Vickers? For the moment. But I need answers. Real ones. She took a deep breath. Is Elena Vasquez alive? Is she working with Marcus? Another pause, longer this time. Yes to both questions. We've had her under surveillance for months. Julian's face went blank with shock. And Julian? Renee pressed. Was he disavowed from the CIA? Yes, but not for the reasons either of them has told you. Thornton's voice hardened. Mercer went rogue trying to prove his sister's innocence in a money laundering case. He interfered with federal investigations, destroyed evidence, and helped her escape custody. So everything, all of this, was personal? Renee asked incredulously. For Mercer, absolutely. Ford was just a means to an end, the man who could lead him to his sister. Marcus smiled triumphantly. See? I told you, but, Thornton interrupted. Ford is also guilty of everything Mercer accused him of. The identity theft, the fraudulent accounts, the money laundering, all of it. The smile froze on Marcus's face. So who's telling the truth? Renee demanded. No one, Thornton said bluntly. Not completely. Mercer wanted to find his sister and get revenge on Ford for involving her. Ford wanted to use you as a scapegoat while he escaped with millions. And we wanted both of them. And me? Renee's voice cracked slightly. What did you want from me? A witness whose testimony would be credible. Someone without ties to either man. Thornton's tone softened slightly. I'm sorry for the deception, Ms. Vickers, but we needed you to act naturally. Renee looked at the two men, both still holding guns, both watching her with calculating eyes. Here's what's going to happen, she said with a calm she didn't entirely feel. Marcus, you're going to transfer the money from my accounts back to me. Right now on your laptop. And why would I do that? He asked, amused. Because Julian wants his sister more than he wants you. And I'm guessing he knows where she is. She turned to Julian. Don't you? Julian's expression confirmed her guess. So here's the deal, she continued. Marcus returns my money. Julian tells the FBI where to find Elena, and I testify against both of you. Marcus laughed. That's not much of a deal for either of us. It's better than what happens if those FBI agents outside get tired of waiting. She nodded toward the window. Because while we've been talking, they've surrounded the plane. Both men turned to look. Through the windows, they could see tactical teams taking position around the aircraft. So, what's it going to be? Renee asked. Deal with me or deal with them? In the end, it wasn't much of a choice. 3 months later. Renee stood outside the federal courthouse, squinting in the bright sunlight. The testimony was over, the sentencing complete. Marcus Ford would serve 20 years for fraud, money laundering, and a host of other financial crimes. Julian Mercer had cut a deal in exchange for leading authorities to his sister and providing evidence against other clients like Marcus. He would serve 5 years, possibly less with good behavior. Elena Vasquez, facing her own reckoning, had turned state's evidence against Marcus's entire network, earning herself a reduced sentence. As for Renee, she had her name and reputation back, if not all of her money. The hospital had created a new position for her with greater oversight authority. Who better to spot fraud, her boss had said, than someone who's experienced it firsthand? Ms. Vickers? She turned to see Detective Lydia Keller approaching from the courthouse steps. Detective, I thought you'd have left by now. Lydia shook her head. Wanted to thank you. Your testimony made all the difference. Even though I wasn't exactly a willing participant in your investigation, especially because of that. Lydia smiled slightly. Authentic outrage is compelling to juries, Renee laughed despite herself. Well, I had plenty of that to go around. There's something else you should know, Lydia said, her expression turning serious. Julian asked me to give you this. She handed Renee a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and a bank account number with an offshore routing code. Renee, by the time you read this, the remaining money Marcus stole from you will have been transferred to the attached account. Consider it restitution for what we put you through. The bail bondsman might have been a cover, but finding justice for those who've been wronged wasn't. Some lies contain kernels of truth. Julian. Renee stared at the paper, emotions warring within her. Is it legitimate? She asked finally. Lydia nodded. The FBI verified it. It's clean money, or as clean as money can be after what it's been through. I'm not sure I want anything connected to either of them. That's your choice. But for what it's worth, I think Julian was genuine about wanting to help you, even if his methods were questionable. Renee folded the note and tucked it into her pocket. You know what the strangest part of all this is? In some twisted way, I'm grateful it happened. How so? Before Marcus, I lived in a bubble of naive trust. I believed in systems, in procedures, in the basic decency of people. She looked up at the courthouse, its stone facade gleaming in the sun. Now I see the world more clearly, the good and the bad. And is that better? Lydia asked. Renee considered the question. I don't know if it's better, but it's real. She straightened her shoulders. And I'd rather live in reality, however complicated, than in a comfortable lie. As she walked away, Renee's phone buzzed with a notification. The transfer had completed. 6 months' worth of lost wages, restored in an instant. She could have left it there, taken the money, closed this chapter, moved on with her life wiser but essentially unchanged. Instead, she pulled up her banking app and initiated another transfer, this one to the hospital's patient assistance fund. Not all of the money, she wasn't a saint, but enough to make a difference for people who needed help. Because if there was one lesson from this whole ordeal, it was that justice came in many forms. Sometimes through courts and testimony, sometimes through bail bondsmen with questionable motives, and sometimes through small acts of restitution that balanced the scales in ways no verdict ever could. Her phone rang as she reached her car. "Unknown number. Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Old habits dying hard. Ms. Vickers," Sophia Wright's voice. "I just saw the transfer you made to the hospital fund. How did you— Never mind." "I don't want to know," Sophia laughed softly. "Old habits. But I wanted to tell you. The FBI is forming a new division focused on complex financial crimes. We need consultants who understand both the human and technical elements. People who've lived through it. Are you offering me a job, Agent Wright?" "I'm offering you a purpose. A way to use what happened to you to help others." Renee considered the offer, thinking of all the other women Marcus had targeted before her. All the people like her who might be out there right now, unwitting pawns in someone else's game. "Send me the details," she said finally. "I'll think about it." As she ended the call, Renee felt something she hadn't experienced since that rainy night at Denny's, when Julian first showed her the photographs of Marcus's betrayal. A sense of possibility, of horizons expanding rather than contracting. The bail bondsman had found her number when no one else could, and in doing so, had helped her find something more valuable. Her power. Her voice. Her truth. And unlike the money, those were things no one could ever steal again.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.